In this video, we're going to look at the if statement again, and we're going to look at two ways to use an if statement to determine the larger of two input values, two integer inputs. We're going to begin with the program already partially completed. So we have an integer num1 and num2, two variables declared, and we have initialized num1 to 0 and num2 to 0. Then we are going to prompt our user to enter two values, and we'll use the scanf to read them in, and then we're going to print those back to the screen as we've been doing all along. Now the first case is going to be three separate simple if statements. So this is similar to what we saw with the introduction to the relational operators video. So in this case, we're just going to use some simple if statements. So if num1, and it's underscore num1, is greater than num underscore 2, okay, right paren, then we are just going to print out that num1 is larger. So inside our block of code, we have something simple, just a simple print statement. We'll do printf, okay, double quote, and let's actually print the value out this time. Okay, so num1, and let's do a %d, is larger. Okay, \n, double quote, comma, num1, right paren, and a semicolon. All right, so if num1 is greater than num2, then it's the larger of the two values. So num1 is larger, and we'll just go ahead and print that back to the screen. Well, so that takes care of the condition. If num1 actually is larger than num2, we'll print that out. If num2 is larger than 1, then this will be false, and we'll skip over the block of code that follows it. To test to see if num2 is larger, we need another if statement. And it looks like this. If num2 is greater than num1, then it's the larger of the two. Okay, so let's just borrow this printf statement. We'll make a copy of it from the previous if. We'll paste it in here to save a little time. And we'll say num2 is larger, and we'll print out the variable num underscore 2. Well, now that will take care of that. What if they are equal to each other? That's a possibility. We could have the numbers could be different. They could be equal. So just in case they're equal, we need an if statement for that as well. So if num1 is equal to num2, then we'll print that out. Okay, so we'll have the block of code, and let's get the printf statement. Let's just copy that from the previous if statement, and we'll paste it in here, and we'll modify it, and we're just going to say the numbers are equal, and we'll still print that out with a %d, and it doesn't matter which one. If they're equal, then they're equal. So we could pick either num1 or num2 to go there. So these three simple if statements will detect which of the values is larger, and it'll print that to the screen. And if they're equal, it'll print that to the screen as well. All right, so now let's build this, and then we'll run it. The build succeeded. Let's run. Now let's enter a couple of values. Please enter two integer values. So let's make the first number larger. Let's make it 7, and let's make the second number a 2. So num1 is 7, num2 is 2. You entered 7 and 2. Case 1, three separate simple if statements. Num1, 7 is larger. Okay, then we have the output statement for case 2, but we've not put the code there yet. So this detects 7, num1 is the larger value. Let's test this again. So we'll close that, and let's run it again, and let's make the second number the larger of the two. So let's make the first number 2. Let's make the second number 8. Enter. You enter 2 and 8. Case 1, three separate if statements. This time, num2, 8 is larger. So our two if statements then, or three if statements actually detected which one was larger. To see what happens when they're equal, then let's stop execution, start it again, and let's enter two values that are equal. Okay, so I'm going to enter 5 and 5. So that says you've entered 5 and 5. We're still doing case 1, and it says the numbers are equal, 5. So in each of these cases, the 3 test cases that I just ran, only one of those if statements turned out to be true. So one happened to be true, and the other 2 were false. So we only got one output, depending on what values we had for num1 and num2. So this is one way that you can solve the problem by using 3 simple if statements. Now, let's move on and do the same problem using a different approach. And this will show you a different version of the if statement. So this is going to be case 2, and we're going to use what's called an if, else statement. So we're going to replace what we had up at the top with a different form. Now we can begin the same way as we did before. We're going to use the same 2 numbers. Okay, so let's go copy the first if statement. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it down here because we're going to use it to start the case 2 version. Now we will print this to the screen. We're going to get 2 outputs here. So we'll get the case 1 output from above, and then we'll get the case 2 output and the result that we show here. Alright, so here's how you do case 2. If num1 is greater than num2, num1 is larger. There's no difference there. Now here's where it will be different. Instead of using a simple else, we're going to use an else if here. And then we'll have the same test. If num2 is greater than num1, then we have a block of code to go with that. And we're just going to print out a similar statement, or just like we did above. So let me copy the printf from here, and I'll paste it there. And we're going to say, like we did above, num2 is larger, and we'll print out num_2. So the difference here is I've changed the if statement from case 1 to an else if. Now let's add another clause. This is going to be simple else, just else with no test afterwards. And we'll have a block of code here. Alright, now in this case, and I'll paste the printf statement in again here, then I'm going to say the 2 numbers are equal, just like we did above. Okay, the 2 numbers are equal. I'll still keep the %d to print them out, and I'll erase the larger part here. And as we did up above, it doesn't matter which one we print if they're equal. Okay, look at this structure. We have an if statement followed by an else if followed by an else. So let me explain this. If you want to construct your if statement like this, then here's how this will work. Okay, if the first test is true, if num1 is larger than num2, then this printf statement will be executed, and it will skip these 2 things here, the else if and the else. So the advantage of using this construct is that when it finds a test that is true, that is, if this test is true, then it'll do this block of code, and then it will skip down and continue. It will not do the remainder of those 2 tests. If we have num2 as being larger, then the first test will fail. Num1 greater than num2 will be false. So then we will continue testing for other possibilities. So we'll do the else if. Else if num2 is larger than num1. So if that turns out to be true, then we do this printf statement, and after we're finished with that, we skip over the else and we go down here. Now the third possibility would be if they are equal to each other. So that means that this test is false for the first if, this test is false for the else if, then both of those being false, the else is going to capture what's left. So we know that if you have 2 numbers, then one will be greater than the other, or they will be equal. So the only possibility, if these 2 tests fail, the if and the else if those fail, the only possibility is that these are going to be equal. So we can put that under an else clause and then just print this out. So this is another way that you can write an if statement, and it's very handy if you have a number of cases where you want to test. So if you got a bunch of things you want to test and only one test can be true, then this is a good approach to take. All right. So this, whoops, I moved the window again. All right. So now let's build and run the program, and we'll see what happens with this second case. Okay, the build succeeded. So now we're going to run this 3 times again, and we'll see the output from case 1 and case 2. So I'll start this up. Now let's enter 2 numbers, with the first one being larger. So let's do a 6 and a 1. Okay, enter. So in this case, you see num1 is larger, so case 1 still gave us what we expected. Case 2, using the if-else if, gave us the same answer. Num1 6 is larger. Okay, let's run it again. And let's make the second number larger this time. So let's enter a value of 2 and 9. So the second number is larger. Okay, num2 is larger, num2 is larger, so both cases are able to detect it. Finally, let's run the program again, and we'll type in values that are equal. Okay, there's the window. So we'll type in 5 and 5. And the result from both of our constructs for the if statement, case 1 and case 2, give us the same output. The numbers are equal, and in case 2 it says the 2 numbers are equal. So we'll terminate that. So here's an example that shows you an alternate way of using the if statement, and it includes all of the options that an if statement has. So you can have an if followed by any number of else if statements, and if you choose, you can also have a single else included. With the else if, you can have as many as you want. However, if you want to use an else, there can only be one of those, one else statement in your construct. So that is the lesson from this part, and that concludes this video.